Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I'm Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about American Gods Season 1, Episode 2. It's called The Secret of Spoon. Full spoilers for the episode, as always. So, I will say this show, like, obviously sometimes you get a first episode and it's like a little bit longer because it's a premiere, so sometimes they'll make it a double or they'll make it like 50% more kind of thing. And this one was also a full hour. Right, which when I
Yes.
saw the runtime, I went, "Oh, really? We're going to do a full hour every single episode? This feels a bit much." But I will say this: it went in very quickly, so at least I cannot fault that it's
Oh,
holding my
absolutely.
attention.
I got to the end. I was like, oh, that's the ending?
Yeah, I thought we were like halfway through. I thought that the events that the ending sets up were still going to be in this episode.
So did I.
So, but here we are. So, like the last one, we started with like a scene in the past. This one was on a slave ship, with
Yes.
slaves coming to the US. And, well, it wasn't the US at the time, was it? Was it already the US?
I mean, I don't think it would have been the US.
Yeah, it's just America.
America?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just in case someone points it out and goes, "Oh, that's wrong." Technicalities,
Yeah.
whatever. Right, and we're introduced to a god played by Orlando Jones, and it's not as exciting as the last episode's opening because it's not got a war battle with a bunch of Vikings.
Still captivating as shit, though.
It was captivating. He basically that this god has like knowledge of the future, and he gives them this speech about what it means to be, because these slaves don't know what it means to be black in the modern sense. Like, what does it mean in present day when you say someone's black? It's not just about skin
Yeah, and,
color.
and to the idea to them, they won't have really even seen white people.
Yeah,
So
outside of
outside of recent events.
yeah being captured. Yeah, outside of that part of
Yeah.
life. Yeah.
Yeah. To them, that's all they ever know, which actually comes up later on as a nice thematic link.
Oh yeah. That sets up the themes of the episode because the last half of the episode kind of. I mean, I didn't know if it would tie back in, but it does. Like the last chunk when we meet. I can't remember the actor's
China.
name. No, the actor's name because I
Oh,
know
right, yeah.
he's in a lot of stuff. He was in Prison Break. He was in. He's an actor who's popped up in tons of stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, but like yeah, he brings in some of the themes back, and a more interesting way than I think I'd have expected, given where you expect it to go when this sort of stuff comes up. But he gives this great speech about how you're always going to be this, you're going to be that, and even after you've got freedom, things are still bad, and he brings up all these things, and he basically convinces them to torch the boat, and the boat burns.
Yes.
I was going to say to the ground. It's not actually to the ground; it's to the water, but. Yeah, burns the boat, and we just get this beautiful shot of the. But best part of this whole thing though was when it cuts to him, and it's like a spider is his head,
Yeah,
and that's
because Anansi is often portrayed as a spider, and obviously that's the opening
oh
is
yeah, I
you've
was
seen him as a
getting that
spider
because
before
it
anything else.
opens with that, and then at the end of the scene you see the spider crawling away. So
Yeah,
obviously I got that. You can actually see him in pretty much I think most of the scene. Like he was just because I noticed like the weird suit. He's just
yeah,
sitting over the stairs as the slave is like shouting for the god of Anansi.
yeah.
Uh, but he seems to be sitting there listening for a while before he perks up.
Mm.
But no, it was captivating. So, yeah, that was a good word for it. But so obviously come back. Shadow Moon's not particularly pleased that he was just basically lynched, and he was what I thought was curious about this is that Wednesday and anyone else who talks about it, when we have other characters who refer to it, they refer to it as him getting out of it himself.
Yes,
When that's not what it looked like last week. It looked like something else stepped in.
it's certainly not what it looked like now.
Which leads me to some thoughts.
Mm.
So keep your poker face on, because you've read the books, of course. We explained this last
Yep.
time. So you have to not spoil things. But it obviously makes me think, first of all, Shadow Moon is more than just a human being. There is more to him, and that's why he's targeted for this job, and it's why other gods seem to be interested in him. It could partly be that he's a god himself. He doesn't know he's a god. He's forgotten his god origins or whatever you like. It could be that he's something else. We of course have covered the show Outcast. I'm thinking is he some sort of outcast from either heaven or hell? I'm thinking of that.
That's actually an interesting concept, the idea of being an outcast from heaven or hell when you have all these gods from other cultures.
Yeah, true, true.
I think that's quite an interesting concept.
Is he a god that is unaware until he's awakened through events? Like, is it something that's tied to like the state of the world or the state of the people has to be an X way before he awakens. And I don't know. But it's certainly the fact that they seem to say he got out of that himself means okay, right? He has a power he is not aware of. He did that, and that's just how he perceived what happened. Is why we saw
a coping mechanism, so to speak. Yeah,
yeah. You know, kind of like I'm trying to think of an example. Yeah, because there's definitely other stories where like the character will black out and then they turn into like a killing machine, and then they'll wake up and be like, "Oh, who killed everyone?" Ah.
yeah, because they can't cope with it, and like you say, it's very clear that something is not as it seems because they're just like, "Hey, it wasn't Mr. Wednesday's like, hey, it's not me," and obviously he's the logical assumption at the end of the last episode.
Yeah.
Because he's the interested party, but he's very forthcoming. He's cagey at certain things, but he never actively, he never outright lies about things.
Yeah, because he even says later on that he's easing Shadow into the world of all this stuff, the world of the gods. Although he never uses that word, of course. I know it's got because the show's called American Gods, but
yeah, and obviously because we've seen some of the. Even without knowing who he is, like the opening segments are very clear. No, this is gods.
That said, though, none of the well, you don't actually see the god in the first one, but certainly, Mr. Nancy, the god at the start of this one, we've not seen in present day yet. Like, what's he up to? Which I think is at least obviously it thematically ties in with the episode, but I do think it's interesting that they introduce him in the opening, and then he's not in the episode. But I'm assuming he's going to pop up at some point.
Well, yeah.
So, it's interesting that they've chosen to do it like that. But no. So, Shadow goes back home, and he there's a good quiet sort of series of moments where he's sort of contemplating, and he's looking at the house, he's sort of remembering his wife standing at the window, lying in bed, all that kind of stuff. He's packing up, and he's like getting ready to move. And he goes through his wife's phone, which I was not expecting the King Dong that appeared.
No, it comes out of nowhere, doesn't it?
Yeah, he just scrolls up and there you go. There's a very proud man showing off his goods.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Oh dear. I don't know if it's funnier because it was big, or would it have been funnier if it was really small? Like, which one's funnier? I guess bigger pisses him off more.
Bigger pisses. But see, does it? Because if it's smaller, it's like, really, you did it for that. I can see the comedy both ways, frankly.
So they wanted average. Give him a just out down the line, down the middle.
Yeah. That's the option that does the least damage.
I mean, all of it's damaging, but like he throws the phone away in anger, and I'm just like, yeah, you're probably pretty pissed.
Yeah, and then obviously it's still stuck on his mind. So he looks over at the picture frame and just sees it again.
Yeah, which obviously is just in his head, but
yeah,
it was pretty funny. So they leave. They go on a road trip. So Wednesday wants to assemble the forces for a coming war, a coming fight, and they need to go to Chicago. So they stop off, get some things. They meet someone else briefly. We see some glowy red eyes, but we don't really get to see anything for what they're about. Although I can tell you cagey little bastard. So, but obviously on the way, Shadow goes to the store to get some stuff, some seemingly random stuff, like especially the crappy paperback books that he picks up. Just like, this is really random.
Yeah, he just picks up a handful of them. It's like, it doesn't even matter what they are.
But so obviously the interesting thing that happens here is he's going through the TV section. Gillian Anderson's character makes her debut. Her name is Medea, which is adequate. She presents herself as the Lucy character from I Love Lucy in black and white. And again, it's funny, we talked about them playing with the aspect ratio last week. She does this herself in the TVs, because she's actually, it's weird that I relate to this, but she's talking about how the show was shot in 35mm, so it looks quite good in HD now. Because that's true. If something was shot in film, 35mm film, it actually can transfer really nice to HD and 4K, because film is actually quite high quality. Whereas if stuff was shot in video, it looks like shit, and it's always going to look like shit. But then at one point she's like, oh, but it was shot in 4:3, and she goes like that and pushes the thing, and it creates the widescreen. Really fancy. The sad part is though, is that some idiots think that that's what happens when you put on stretch mode on your TV.
Yeah, yeah. The stretch mode does not have the powers of media.
No, stretch mode is awful. Stretch mode is not a
And
god. It is
and
definitely the devil.
if any of you use stretch mode,
Shame on you.
yeah, go away.
Shame on you. Black bars are our friends. Black bars present the cinematic painting as it was intended to be seen. Love with them.
Unless you have god powers.
Unless you have god powers, in which case... Yeah, but even then, you're messing with the artist's intent, because they framed it for whatever.
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
I've went on a tangent here about aspect ratios.
I also did like here they named Technical Kid in the show, which obviously we talked about last week.
Technical Boy, I believe, is the...
Technical Boy, yes.
Why am I correcting you on names? You've read the goddamn book.
Because it's the fat kid is what he's often called in the book. I get him mixed up.
And she makes a counter offer. She's like, "Oh, why don't you come work for us? You know that guy you're working for. He's old time. He's basically just selling stale oranges on the sidewalk. We're the future. You know, I'm on screens on TV. I'm on the phones. I'm on the tablets. You know." So she tries to seduce him over to her side, which would make me think she's not one of the allies that Wednesday's going to call upon. She's one of the opposing force, which then makes me think, is there going to be a war between two factions of gods? And what are they fighting for? What do one set of gods believe and want? What do the other set of gods want? I have no idea. I can't ponder this right now, but that seems to be what's going on.
Yeah, it's really crazy when you put all that, the intentions of gods. What do gods want? That's such a big question when you just put it out like that.
I presume they want to shape the world in the way they want, and having all these other gods that it's basically politics. I mean,
yeah, they want to do one thing, the others want to do something else. Yeah.
This is basically what it is. But nah, so he just thinks he's going crazy, and this is the kind of weird thing for me right now. Is obviously as a viewer, I'm like, okay, this is gods, we're in God's worlds, we're in our world, but the gods are in it, and whenever we get to them, they can do weird things and whatnot.
Yeah,
and. So he says to Wednesday, "Oh, I'm going crazy, or I'm going mad, or whatever." This happens to some guys when they get out the pen, and I was like, "Well, hurry up, get used to this, Shadow. Come on, right? get up to speed, because I don't need you thinking you're crazy for the whole season." Sure enough, but as the episode goes on, it's part of the thing when he accepts the deal to play the checkers. For his head to get bashed in, he's like, you know what? If all this is real, if TVs are talking to me, sure.
Why not?
If this is the world I'm in now, let's go for it. So he is slowly accepting. So yeah, basically that was unexpected. Obviously, I'm skipping one sort of side scene. We'll get to that because it was on its own, like last time. But they go to Chicago and we meet Chernobog.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just saying that right. We see him beating a cow to death. Well, actually, no, we see him inject a cow with a...
I don't think it's an injection. I think it's like a knife. Like you press it and a knife stabs down.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Because it just drops. If it was an injection...
Oh, yeah, no, sure. Well, I mean... What is the dictionary definition of an injection? Does that still count?
I would argue an injection has to inject something other than just the blade.
Okay, no, that's fair. So if it's a poison blade,
if it's a poison blade, then we're getting murky.
Okay. But yeah, so and obviously the sisters, the Zoria sisters, Zoraya. There you go, Zoraya sisters. There's a lot of weird names to learn in this. All right, right. So. They tell fortunes. They go and he's here to see them. So Wednesday wants to get this Chernobog dude. He wants him to come with to go to a meeting, presumably of the gods that he wants to enlist on his side. And this guy's very hostile towards Wednesday, probably for good reason. I feel like his reasons for hating him are probably just. I have nothing to base that on. It just feels like.
I mean, Wednesday's kind of slimy, and you go, yeah, he's probably cheated some dudes out of some stuff in his time.
Yeah, I can see it. But of course, the thematic links to go back to the start of the episode, though, is that they get invited to dinner, and Chernobog's not really happy about this, but he's like, right, no, you're invited for dinner, you'll upset them if you don't come and eat. So they eat, and, we cut to the scene, and he just brings, oh, so Shadow, you're black, and, like...
For a second, you're like, right, where's this going?
I know, he's like, yeah, is that a problem? He's like, I know where I'm from, everyone was the same colour, so we didn't really care about, any of that stuff. We chose it was basically colour of skin. It was the shade of hair that they basically base things on lighter hair and darker hair, and I can't remember which was which, but what one was seen as the like.
Well, light is good, dark is bad.
Was it for some reason in my head I thought it was the opposite, and I wasn't sure.
No, it's that.
Okay, right. So obviously, for me, the way this brings this back in, it tells these stories. It also talks a lot about killing the cow and how there was artistry to it, but now it's just this.
Yeah, it was the idea that before there was skill, you had to know what you were doing to do it, whereas now, anyone with a thumb can do it, I believe is the phrase he uses.
Everything's too easy. And maybe that's part of what's upsetting the gods, is that technology and stuff like that's become too easy. And maybe that ties in with media and how she's kind of like, no, we are part of the future, we are using technology. Whereas all these old gods, because everything's so dated, like all their methods are sort of died with using the old methods of the world working.
Yeah, like we even see Wednesday chuck the phones away. Like he's like, nah, don't need any of that.
Yeah, that's right.
And when he goes, at a push, a telegram, and he's like, even that was the dawn of the technical age. I think it was the information age, and he was just like,
It used to be mystery and getting an envelope, and you're like, oh, what's in here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So thematically, tying back to the race stuff and the opening scene. It was a very cynical and sad kind of message here, but what I was taking from him was that it doesn't really. We use white and black because that's kind of the modern version
that's
of
our
this,
world.
right? That's the modern version of it, and that's how we define almost racism as quickly as we can. We just talk about white and black. But what he's basically saying is, if you don't have that, you just pick something else and you have the same thing. So going back to the opening scene when Mr. Nancy explains to them, oh, you don't even know what black is yet. Yeah, they've decided you're black. That's basically what he's saying happened where he came from. He's saying, we decided that this type of hair, you're a black person. In spirit, not in the actual race, obviously. But the idea that it always turns into sides, and one side always says they're better and picks and says, right, we're going to treat you like shit, basically.
But to argue against your cynicism, I would argue he comes out almost hopeful, because he talks about how as him and his brother and his brother got older, the hair changed from light and dark, and they both became grey, and essentially they were equal at the end of it over time.
So what you're saying? Eventually, both sides realised this was stupid.
Yeah.
And they can't distinguish from one another, and
so there was nothing there the whole time. And what was the point? That's kind of what I took away from the end of the story.
Okay, from the end of the story, yeah, that's fair. I did like that part, and that was kind of nice. I don't know what him wanting to bash his brains in the next scene says about that, though.
Okay, that's fair.
Like, does that flip it around and say because he was the one that was mistreated, he just wants to be able to mistreat someone again? So he's making someone willingly do it by losing the game. But maybe that's what makes it artful for him, is that he has to win it. It's not just
I'm doing this because I can. There's an actual test of who deserves this.
Yeah, there's skill involved, and
it's not. He's not picking on Shadow because he's black here. It's no, you lost. That you have a reason here.
Yeah, but then there's even the whole thing where he wants to be the Black Pieces, which I looked up the god. The name literally translates as Black God.
Yeah, he's the Slavic god of darkness, and his brother is the god of light, which makes sense.
I agree with that. And again, go back to the whole thing about Kill having art to it. Like he doesn't use his strength because he's a god, so theoretically his strength is obviously better. He doesn't have that would be no skill in that. But beating them at checkers, where Shadow might be quite good.
They're kind of on even footing,
and he claims to be good, at the very least. So he thinks this is a challenge. I actually have to earn the kill.
Yeah,
and he does so. And then the episode cut to black and the credits rolled. I'm like, oh damn it! I thought we were going to get the.
I know. I was so shocked. I was like, wait, we're done. That was the end? How is it over already?
Also, the hammer when it was bleeding, very interesting. Although I will say this, see when Wednesday said, oh, we have to go to Chicago, he's like, what's in Chicago? He's like, my hammer. I'm like, okay, who's Thor? And don't think I didn't notice for a second that we cut to a shot of thunder and lightning whilst we're in that house.
Yeah.
Alright, because I did. I noticed that. Yeah. Thank you very much.
I mean, hammers it's just synonymous with Thor, isn't it? Especially when you throw in lightning. I do think he's an extremely interesting character there, because he talks about how his muscles have kind of waned because he hasn't needed to use them. When Shadow prods him, it's like, hey, you look like you've lost a bit there, and it's this idea that
society itself has gotten lazy, and we're all fat and lazy because everything's too easy.
Yeah, but he really tries to make it a challenge. Like he gives himself this challenge with Shadow. He doesn't have to do that if he really wanted to kill him. I'm sure he had the hammer in his hand. He could have just smacked him.
Makes me assume that Wednesday and his side want to turn the world back a few generations or eras, try and make things like they were, so people had to earn things with the gods and make themselves relevant again.
Yeah, because obviously a lot of what we're seeing with the god stuff is that they need the worship, they need the attention. We see it a lot with Bilquis. We saw it with Anasi at the start of this, how he just waits for a while. Like you said, you see him on the edge of the screen, and he just waits and goes, "Yeah, they've given me enough attention now. I'll give them a speech."
Yeah. No, that's episode 2. I'm done. I think the way the Ray stuff played into that final conversation, the way he brought it up again, was definitely probably the highlight of the episode. Just in the sense of the writing really came full circle. Yeah. Obviously, actually, the one thing I'm not spoken about is the Bilquis scene.
Yes.
Or montage. I think it's more accurate this week.
Yeah.
Montage of her and her several victims that she consumes. Again, some funny effects going on there with the big hand, and then like the final shot, of course, overhead as she consumes the female victim.
Yes.
And I'm going to use that word, victim, and they feel like victims. And so we see that she does this frequently. She's building her power in some way, and she goes to this museum display, and there's like a statue, and there's like a bunch of sort of jewels and stuff. My initial sort of speculation was, okay, was this her? Like this statue?
I think that's the implication.
Yeah.
More than anything, it's because she looks at it and it's like it's like she owns the whole scene there. Like this is hers.
And then she makes like a body rise up under the jewels.
Yeah.
And like, maybe is it her sister or something like that she's raising? Like if there's a body actually under there, I don't know if there is. I don't know why there would be under the jewels. But is she just sort of reminding herself what she looked like with the jewels on? Is there something like that?
Yeah, see, the way I was playing it in the scene was, like you said, she was building her power with the victims. And I think, maybe it's like she's not there yet. She hasn't, that image of her with with all the jewels is her at the height of her power. But she's not there yet because the body doesn't complete. It kind of gets, half there. You can make it out. You know it's something that you can see the person, but it isn't actually anything yet. And I think that's kind of the state that she's in. We know she's a god, and she's got some power, but she's clearly not at the height of her powers.
I think it's interesting that we literally just... I mean, I know it was kind of like a montage and then a scene after it, but it's still just one little individual bit on its own. There was no like cutting back to her later or anything like that. It was just, again, almost right bang in the middle of the episode. We cut to her, we get our little story playing out for one scene, essentially, and then that's it. And so, see you next week for the next part. So, whatever she's building to, it could be quite late in the season. It could be something we trickle out through as we go. I don't know. Or maybe they'll just hit me with it next week. I have no idea. But
it's really hard to tell because the pacing's kind of crazy. Like I say, stuff just happens. It's like, there's a road trip and it feels like, okay, this is going on a while, and stuff's going on, under the surface. They're drip feeding us these things like the Bilquis stuff, bit here, bit there. But then once you get in a scene, it's like we were convinced, both of us, that this stuff at the end of the episode was still going to play out in this episode. But then it doesn't. It really surprises me with the pacing of those things.
Yeah, it just ends with, tomorrow at dawn, I'm going to bash your brains in with a hammer.
Yeah.
That's how it ends. I'm pretty confident Shadow's not dying next episode, though. I've just got a sneaking feeling.
It's a safe bet, isn't it?
That the protagonist is going to survive past episode 3.
It's just a question of how more than if.
Yes. What tricks does he pull out of his sleeve to do so, or does Wednesday step in and pull some tricks, or so on and so forth? But
I do like the idea there of tricks out of his sleeve, given the whole coin tricks stuff that he's been doing.
I totally meant that. So there you go. That's episode 2 of American Gods. So yeah, thanks very much for watching. Let us know what you thought of the episode in the comments below. We did launch a Patreon this past weekend, so you can check out that over at patreon.com/mailedfuzztv. If you want to help us out and support the channel, you get some bonuses for a lot of the stuff we do, if you do so. But you can check that out if you want to. Also, just like, subscribe, give us comments, that kind of thing. All of it helps. Get us on Twitter at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. Individual Twitters are on the screen. But once again, guys, thanks for watching. Have you got any vanilla?